Part 1. The masks. Where have you ever met someone who seemed completely genuine? They smiled, they spoke with confidence, they looked calm, yet something about them felt off. You couldn't explain it, but your instincts kept telling you there was more. Beneath the surface, what if that feeling wasn't just intuition? What if your brain was noticing tiny clues your conscious mind hadn't put together yet? For centuries, philosophers and psychologists have tried to answer one question: can we truly understand another person? Few thinkers explored this mystery as boldly as Friedrich Nietzsche. He believed that human beings rarely reveal themselves completely, not because they're naturally deceptive, but because life often teaches us to hide the parts of ourselves that feel vulnerable. Modern psychology reaches a similar conclusion in a different way. Researchers have found that people develop coping strategies and defense mechanisms to protect themselves from fear, rejection, and emotional pain. In other words, one of us don't walk through life wearing our true selves. We wear versions of ourselves that helped us survive, and once you begin to notice those masks, you'll never look at people the same way again. The first truth is simple. Everyone wears a mask, not because they're fake, but because somewhere along the way, they learned that showing everything they felt wasn't always safe. Think about it. The child who was laughed at for crying may grow into an adult who never shows sadness. The student who was praised only for success may become someone who hides every mistake. The employee afraid of losing their job may smile even when they're exhausted. These aren't acts of dishonesty. They're acts of protection. Nietzsche once wrote that every profound spirit needs a mask. Many scholars interpret this as a reminder that appearances rarely reveal the whole person. What we present to the world is often only one layer of who we are. But here's where it becomes interesting. Masks are never perfect. No matter how carefully someone manages their image. Small cracks begin to appear, a brief hesitation before answering, a forced laugh that lasts a little too long, a sudden change of subject, a flicker of discomfort across the face. Psychologists call these moments leakage. Tiny signals that sometimes reveal emotions a person didn't intend to show. Not every signal has a hidden meaning, but when several appear together, they can tell a much deeper story. This leads to the second truth. Sometimes what people criticize most in others can reveal something about themselves. Modern psychology calls this projection, although it doesn't explain every criticism. It describes a common pattern. People sometimes attribute uncomfortable thoughts, feelings, or insecurities to someone else instead of confronting them directly. Someone who constantly accuses others of being selfish may be struggling with selfish impulses of their own. Someone obsessed with pointing out weakness may secretly fear appearing weak. That doesn't mean every complaint is projection. Sometimes criticism is completely justified, but when a certain judgment appears again and again, it's worth asking, what emotion might be hiding underneath? Nietzsche often challenged people to question their own motives before judging the world around them. That question remains just as powerful today. The third truth is this: silence often reveals as much as words. Most people pay attention to what someone says. Very few notice what they avoid saying. A long pause before answering very simple question, a nervous smile after a difficult topic, an immediate attempt to change the conversation. These moments aren't proof of deception, but they often point toward emotional significance. Experienced therapists don't only listen to stories, also notice pauses, changes in tone, body language, and subjects people struggle to discuss. Sometimes, the silence tells the real story. Something most people never notice: confidence and certainty aren't always the same thing. Some of the loudest voices in the room are trying the hardest to convince themselves. People who constantly remind others of their success, their intelligence, or their importance may genuinely feel confident, or they may be trying to protect a fragile sense of self-worth. Psychology describes this as overcompensation, where outward confidence sometimes hides inner insecurity. Nietzsche frequently warned against confusing appearances with reality, because the strongest performance isn't always the strongest person. Sometimes it's the opposite. Then comes one of the most important lessons in understanding people. Before assuming someone is lying to you, ask whether they might be lying to themselves. Human beings are remarkably skilled at self-deception, not because they enjoy living in fantasy, but because certain beliefs make emotional pain easier to bear. Someone may insist they're completely over a painful breakup, yet every conversation somehow returns to that person. Another may claim they don't care about recognition, yet become deeply upset when they're ignored. These contradictions don't automatically make someone dishonest. They make them human. Our minds often protect us before we're ready to face uncomfortable truths. And when you begin noticing those contradictions, you stop judging people so quickly. Instead, you become curious, because beneath almost every contradiction, there's a story waiting to be understood. In the next chapter, we'll go even deeper into fear projection, control, and the hidden forces that quietly shape almost every decision people make, because sometimes the behavior you notice on the surface is only the shadow of something much deeper.